do you do when God delays? When you are praying and nothing is happening, there is no response, what do you do? Now, we must be realistic because we live in a real world and we cannot be in denial. If you go through pain, you can go before God and say, I'm well, God, I'm fine, God. When you should be talking to God about your pain, when you should be talking to God about trouble. We must not be in denial because God already knows everything about us. That's why he said to Jeremiah, I knew you before you were born. The psalmists often talk about delays. Now, when you look at 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 7, we won't turn there, just relate to you 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 7. When David came from fighting the Philistines, the women began to praise David. They said, David killed 10,000s, but Saul only in his thousands. And Saul's reaction to this was bad. He became jealous. He said, why are they ascribing more praise to David? David is not the king. And in verse 9 of the chapter, it tells us that Saul eyed David from that day. David became Saul's enemy, all because Saul was jealous because the woman praised David more than Saul. And for the next 8 or 9 years, David ran from Saul. Saul was his enemy. Now, David was very close to Saul's family. He loved Saul's children, Jonathan, the son, Michal, the daughter. He was very close to this family, but he could not enjoy the fellowship of being close to this family because Saul hunted David like an animal all the days of his life. So for about 8 or 9 years, David ran from Saul. Saul thought, what more can David have besides the throne? Because all the people began to praise David because of his victories. Saul, instead of complimenting this man, instead became jealous. It ignited a demonic stronghold that came upon Saul because of jealousy. Saul was his enemy. And so, David was a hated enemy. He was running like an animal instead of an anointed king. David cried to God in Psalms 13. He wrote this Psalm 13 when he was exhausted, when he was desperate, when he cannot take it any longer. All the days of his life, he had to run, he had to hide. And writing Psalms 13 was a result of Saul hunting him like an animal. David said he could not go on. Have you been in that type of a situation when you just cannot go on? What you're facing is more than you can handle. You don't have the capacity to deal with it. You just can't go on. David felt like that. That's why he wrote Psalms 13. Cannot take it anymore. Maybe Maybe it is some sickness that the doctor diagnosed and there's no cure for it. Maybe it's a lack of finances. Every month there is a struggle. I can't go on anymore. I'm battling every month. Perhaps it is a son or daughter that is so rebellious that you don't know what to do with them. You can't go on. Or perhaps it is substance abuse, alcohol, or drug that puts you down. You lose your respect, your dignity, and you just can't go on. Perhaps it's a fellow worker where you work. Just cannot put up with his nonsense. You just can't get along anymore, etc., etc. You cannot find any solution. Have you been in those situations? That's why Psalms 13 is a very realistic psalm. It's not a psalm of denial. David goes before God and he says it like it is, without denying his real feeling. He cried out to God. Now David was a man of God. He was a man after God's own heart. He was a sweet psalmist of Israel. He was a champion of Israel after defeating Goliath. David carried a sweet, beautiful anointing. But he had to run and hide most of his life because Saul was after him. Now, beloved, we all know our struggles. Who doesn't go through struggles? Everybody goes through some kind of struggles. So how do we handle these struggles when we go through them? This Psalm 13 begins with a sigh, but it ends with a song. Four times in this psalm, he cries, "How long? How long? How long? How long?" Look at verse 1. Verse 1 starts by saying, "How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? Forever?" Then the second time, "How long wilt thou hide thy face from me?" Verse 2, this is the third time, "How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily?" And the fourth time, "How long shall mine enemy be exalted over me?" 4 times. The man is crying out to God in verse 1 and 2. There's no denial here. He's coming before the facts of what he's going through. And so when we go through problems, we are asked, "How are you doing?" Most often people say, "How are you doing? How's everything?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." You're going through a rough patch. "I'm fine." We lie, don't we? We lie. Because we don't want to go and tell them the whole story, what you're going through. We cut it short. "I'm fine, thank you. But you know how rough things are. I'm fine." So, most often, but God knows how you are. God knows your heart. He knows my heart. He knows the pain you carry. Only God knows that. So today, my brother, my sister, we're going to be very realistic about what we go through. Because when you're not in denial, when you go before God with the facts like David did, you will understand that you are a real person who go through pain and problems. You can't deny that. To get the results from God. God knows how we are. Sometimes we feel, is God really there? Because David said, how long, God? Have you forgotten me, God? I can't feel you. I am running all the days of my life. I can't sense you in my life. Now we are talking about a man who was after God's own heart. That's why, my brother, my sister, many of us will be able to identify with David in Psalms 13. God knows. Now, a little bit about Job. How did Job handle his problems? Job went through a long, protracted problem. This man, he buried 10 children one day. Now, some of us that are here have buried one child. And we were not able to handle it. But this man buried 10 children. He lost everything. I do not think any one of us would ever go through what Job went through. But the man says, my Redeemer liveth. My God is able. What carried this man in the depth when he could have committed suicide, really? His faith. You know, when you lose a loved one, they say time heals. Take it from me, first-hand evidence in my personal life, time hasn't healed my pain. When my son was 19 years old, when he passed on the in November, it's about 9 years. For me, it is as fresh as yesterday. You may ask, how are you coping? My faith in the living God is why I've coped up to today. It's not time. Your faith in the living God is what makes you cope. And there are people sitting here that are carrying that pain. How long, oh God? How long? It's a beautiful peace that passes all understanding, and that inner joy inside that God gives you, you're able to cope. It's one thing to bury your dad. It's another thing to bury your mom or your wife. No pain will equal you when you put your child in the ground. Many will not. I pray to God that none of you will go through that. You know why? There's nothing in the world that you can take to heal that pain. Only God. Only God. How long, oh God? That's when God comes through and He supplies that inner joy, that peace. It's going to be okay because your loved one is just gone away and you will see your loved one again. That's my hope. That's why I preach the gospel. And so today, what are you facing today? Let's be realistic. We come, we worship, we praise, we glorify God, we go to jobs. Some jobs are tough. We work under bosses that probably give us a hard time. These are realistic things. How do you cope? You cope because the living God is with you. His grace is upon you. And Psalms 13 is a classic example today that we are never in denial. And so Job was one of the perfect examples also. I said it could be a long protracted problem, like there are no answers. You think God has forgotten you? Not true. God never forgets anyone. In Isaiah 49:15, Isaiah says, a woman can forget the child that she bore, but God will not forget no matter what our feelings are. And so, when you study verse 1, how long will you hide your face, O God? It's the same as Psalms 22. Psalms 22 and Psalms 13 has relevance because the introduction of Psalms 22, Jesus says, O God, why hast thou forsaken me? And David felt the same way. Oh God, how could you forsake me at a time like this? When Jesus prayed, oh God, how could you have forsaken me? Jesus was forsaken so that you and I will not be forsaken anymore. Because he paid the price. He took everything on our behalf. Psalms 22 has no relevance to David whatsoever. Psalms 22 is about the Messiah. It has no historic place in David's life, but in the life of the Messiah, the crucifixion of Jesus. Sometimes we feel as though we are forsaken of God. Jesus has been there also. God does not forsake us. God never forsakes anyone. Look at Calvary. You know, if Jesus can pay the ultimate price for you and I, God will withhold nothing else. The best that God had for us is what he gave us on Calvary. He will not withhold anything else from us, my brother, my sister. God will not forsake us. Jesus was forsaken in our place so that God